Today on Learn Me Something
The Phantom Time Hypothesis
versus
The 1908 auto race. Hey, Josiah.
Not Josiah.
You're correct.
Sorry, Josiah's not going to make it tonight. He's tapping out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chazz is here, and Josiah is not even in the same state.
Nope, Josiah, he'd be traveling.
Oh, I forgot to hit record on the video. Sorry, Josiah, who makes the videos.
Yep, I did too. I'm already the world's worst substitute.
We missed the first 7 seconds of this episode. We could start over. Should we start over?
That's up to you. You're the boss.
Yeah, we'll just keep going.
Okay.
You are now kind of unofficially the official guest host when one of us cannot be around. This is your second time where someone has had to step out and last minute called you in.
I'm honored. I'm very humbled by this.
For those of you who don't remember, why don't you remind the people what you talked about last time you were on the podcast?
Well, see, last time I stepped in so last minute that Josiah gave me a topic. So I got to speak on flamingos last time.
It was glorious.
It was glorious, but I didn't get to pick it. So this time around, I got to do my own research and figure things out.
You picked one.
I got my own.
Do you want to do the punishment if you lose, or do you want Josiah to do it?
I don't know. Is there a rule against it, or I don't know?
He can do it. Yeah, you can make the decision. Maybe you can wait and see who loses and then decide.
Yeah, that's probably pretty fair. I don't want to jump to any conclusions about my abilities in this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Josiah usually comes up with something fun to say at the start. Did you come up with anything fun?
Oh, see, he didn't prepare me for that. I feel so unprepared.
Let me check my inventory. I have a large growing list of things that I think would be good podcast ideas, and then I realized that they're not actually long enough to be good. Oh, here's one. Did you know that there's a ship called the HMS Carmania? And back in one of the wars, see how already unprepared I am? Germany had a ship, and they were going through enemy space, so they were like, let's hide our ship. We'll disguise it. And we know this other ship, like these big cruisers. We know there's one called a Carmania. It's nowhere around here, so let's call ours the RMS Carmania. It'll be perfectly disguised, and it'll be great. So Germany disguises themselves. They're now the Carmania. They're sailing across. They almost make it all the way through when they start getting fired on by another ship. And they're like, how was our cover blown? What's the other ship? So the I'm mixing up my timelines. The German
Those World
warship.
Pirates.
The German warship grabbed their binoculars, the single eye binoculars. What are those called?
Telescope.
I'm still thinking of a pirate.
Not
but
a
we're going to go
telescope.
with it.
Is it? I don't know.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
I
though.
got you.
The
Spyglass.
Spyglass, portable telescope. And he glances, he's like, who's shooting at our ship? He glances over. The real HMS Carmania happened to be in the area. So their cover was blown because they just happened to sail by the one ship that they named themselves after. I don't know if that story was worth telling.
I think the process of you telling it made it worth it.
Okay.
If that's worth anything itself.
I should not be allowed to do this without Josiah. Okay, well, there you have it. So you're taking over for Josiah, and Josiah won the last episode. The punishment for last episode was that I have to read Moby Dick. And yeah. Well, it was the winner gets to choose a book. And Josiah picked Moby Dick, which I did download on my iPad, and it's like 100 chapters.
Is it an audiobook, or do you have to read it?
I have to read it.
Oh.
Well, I probably could have gotten the audiobook, but it was $22, and the written book was free.
Okay, yeah, that's worth it.
So I have not finished it because it is quite long.
How far are you?
Yeah. I'm like 2 chapters in.
2 chapters.
This is going to be a slow burning punishment.
Yeah, that's okay. He had to knit a scarf for like 7 years.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it balances.
Every once in a while, there should be a long-term punishment allowed. It's a good thing he didn't win. I had many ideas. Or no, good thing I didn't win for his sake. I was thinking of finding like the longest book on feminism that I could find. Or like, I don't know why this specific thing was stuck in my head, but like the history of women's rights or something. I just thought it'd be very fun.
Yep.
You know, as a guy in his 20s, he should be learning that stuff.
He really needs to educate himself on feminism.
He should know the backstory, the history, how he can play a part, all that stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, I like the idea. I'm kind of sad that you didn't win. I wanted to see Josiah read that book.
yeah, maybe I'll just keep suggesting that as a punishment until I finally win and he gets to read it.
You could always double it back. I think he'd be okay with it.
Yeah, why not? Okay, why don't you tell the people what this podcast is and how it works?
So, Learn Me Something is a podcast created by Josiah and Caleb, where Josiah and Caleb get together and they teach each other about certain specific, crazy, weird subjects.
Yeah, doing
Now-
good so far.
As they teach each other, the listeners get to take their own notes and see who they thought taught the subject better. And then at the end of the podcast, they're able to vote for who was the better teacher. And as we all know, whoever is not that good of a teacher, they got to be punished for it.
Punished. With long, old 1800s novels. Did you know the Moby Dick was back in the 1800s?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I guess I just don't know much. I thought it was up there with, well, now if these books are also that old, I'm going to look extra dumb. Like Fahrenheit 451, 1984, Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights might be pretty old. I think the others were,
They're
I
in like
don't know.
the 60s, I bet.
I'm good at math. English was not my thing.
Yeah.
I think I dropped out of that class in high school.
Everyone knows Chazz the Great Dropout.
Yeah, that was the worst.
So you technically, by being on Josiah's team, won last episode. So it is up to you to decide which one of us goes first.
Oh, man. I thought about this, too, in case I was able to choose. So I went back and forth, but I think I would like to go first.
Okay.
I would
Bold.
like to be the teacher first and foremost.
That sounds great. I'll just sit back and relax.
Yep, just get comfy, settle yourself in, because I'm excited about this. Now, you and I have actually talked about this a little bit before in the past, but
That is
there's
not a good sign.
there's a chance you don't remember it, and I learned more about this as I did the research. Okay,
boy.
so first and foremost, let me start off by saying this: there isn't a lot of consistency in our world. Okay.
Uh-oh.
We don't truly have everything as concrete. There's people that struggle with what's right versus what's wrong, and like what's accurate, what's not quite accurate.
Yeah.
And even people who are like, is this true or is it false? You know, there's a lot of inconsistency in this world.
A healthy back and forth.
But there are some things that are consistent, right? Such as time.
Uh-oh. Don't.
Is time consistent?
Is this episode going to be painful to
It
think?
might be.
Okay, let's do it.
So let me ask you something, Caleb. What
Hit me.
year were you born?
1997.
You're a 97 baby.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Summer baby. in fact.
A summer baby. 1977 summer baby. I was a 96 baby.
Yeah.
But are we sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure you were a 97 baby?
Oh no. Yeah, I'm going to say yes.
See, what if I told you that you weren't born in 1997?
Are you going to tell me that my parents aren't my actual parents?
No, that would still be that would still line up with this topic.
Okay.
But it's what if you weren't born in 97? What if you were born in a different year and you had no idea?
This is a classic switched at birth situation, isn't it?
Even better. Even more enticing.
Hit me.
So, let's go back to the year 1986.
Wasn't born yet, I
You
bet.
weren't you weren't born yet, or so you thought.
Most likely.
We're gonna travel to
Usually I'm the one who mispronounces everything. This is fun.
I'm too similar to you in that way. We are in Munchen, Germany. Munchen.
Munchen.
It's got the two little omelets on top of the U, so I know it's pronounced some specific way.
You keep talking, I'll look it up, and if it's horribly wrong, you can do your first goofball.
Okay, perfect. So we're in Munchen, Germany, and there's a bunch of people at this conference.
Wait, did you mean to say Munich?
No.
Okay.
No.
I spelled it wrong then. Just continue.
So we're at this conference, and we're with a bunch of archaeological enthusiasts, people who like to look at archaeology.
Uh-huh.
And they're investigating all these documents and people and agreements from ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something interesting about these documents and people and agreements, because every single one of them is falsified.
Uh-oh.
It's forged.
Oh, no.
And much of these things, if not all of them, are actually forged by the Catholic Church.
I knew that was going to come into play.
And they're forged hundreds of years too early.
Oh, so they really missed it.
Yeah.
Wait, forged too early?
So they depict things that happened much later than they were supposed to have happened. So there's this guy at this conference, and he goes by the name of Hebert Illig.
Naturally.
Now, what a great name for starters. Hebert Illig is this guy at this conference, and as he's there and working through this, he starts to get confused as to what's going on. Because a lot of these people are at this conference, and they're just like, wow, look at the history. This is fascinating.
But he's a time guy.
But he's a time guy. He's a time guy.
He loves time things.
And he's looking at all this, and he's watching all these interactions, and he's starting to process this idea. He's getting really curious about what he is witnessing, and this thought comes into his head, and this thought forms a hypothesis. And this hypothesis eventually is called the phantom time hypothesis.
That's good.
Isn't that such a good name?
That's a name right
Oh,
there.
it's such a good name.
Welcome to the phantom hypothesis.
So we have Hebert Illig, and he forms this team of people who's good at investigating history and archaeology.
Oh, the dream team.
They got the dream team here. They're going to dissect history and the evidence of history. So they start to go crazy, working around the clock.
Yeah.
They're analyzing, they're scrutinizing all these historical pieces that they've gathered, and their data leads them to a very specific place. And it involves a lot of chronological discrepancies. A lot of time oddities, if you will.
I was born in 1940, wasn't I? I was born before they wrote Moby Dick.
Before they wrote Moby Dick. So they search a little further in figuring out what's going on with time. And they get to the Gregorian calendar.
Oh, no. It's all relative.
Now, I don't know how much you know about the Gregorian calendar.
I'm picturing... wow, this is a joke that is not going to land with anybody but me. When I was younger, my dad went to Belize and got me a calendar from Belize, like a stone cool calendar.
A Belizean calendar?
I'm starting to think probably it's not the same thing. But that's what I'm picturing. So yeah, I think I'm on track.
Right. Yeah, Belizean calendar, yeah.
Same as Gregorian.
So the Gregorian calendar is what we use now. The whole January through December, 30 days, 31 days, yada, yada, yada. That's the Gregorian calendar.
Okay.
Well, the Gregorian calendar was actually introduced in the year 1582. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting. This is going to keep me up tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So how did they do the years? How long were the years before that?
So that's what's interesting. In 1582, this pope by the name of Pope Gregory the 13th, got together and they had to replace the existing calendar.
Yeah.
The existing calendar was called the Julian calendar.
And it wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
Yeah.
It had been around since 45 BC.
That's one of my least favorite calendars, too.
Oh, it's Julian. Yeah. It just doesn't work.
It does not work. Ineffective.
It was outdated, and it was off by... I completely lost my space. Can you believe it? It was off by 10 days.
Okay. 10 days a year or 10 days total?
10 days total.
Because it seems like that's decent.
It doesn't seem like much, but it's still 10 days.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, what's interesting about the Julian calendar is they knew it was going to be off. Because the way the calendar, I don't even know how this is possible, but the way the Julian calendar works is that every 100 years, there was an extra day.
Oh, so instead of doing daylight savings every so often, they just... Wait, no, daylight savings has nothing to do with anything.
They just messed up the whole 24 hours a day, 365. They didn't know what they were doing.
It's like they tried to do the math and realized it didn't work, and then they were like, well, let's just try to get close. It's like when you take a math test, and it's multiple choice, and you get the final answer, and it's like kind of close to one option, so you're like, that's gotta be it.
It's gotta be right. I got 48 and there's a 45, so I mean I couldn't be that far off. That's kind of what happens is they're like
Julian.
The Julian and Gregorian calendars, they're off by 10 days. But as Hebert Illig's looking at this, he's realizing that according to math and how the years were supposed to work, the calendar should have been off by 13 days instead of 10.
Wait a second. Someone lost 3 days.
But what's interesting is the Julian calendar adds an extra day every 100 years. So if they're off by 3 days, that means that the calendar, somewhere in there's 300 years missing.
Wait a second.
There's a 300-year discrepancy between the calendars.
What happened in the dark years? Are there any years we don't have documented? The years 400 AD through 700 AD.
You're on the right track. You're almost there.
Am I? 500 through 800.
Closer.
6 through 9.
You're really hot.
Do we have anything written down for 1,000?
That's the interesting. We'll get to that in just a sec.
Boy.
But that's right.
This is a mind bender.
Because Illig gets to this point where he's like, hold on, do we have 300 years missing of world history?
That's crazy.
Like, what's going on here? And so he and his team figure out that there could be 300 years missing from the year 614 to 911 AD.
What?
Those years could be just completely missing from history.
Holy cow.
And so the first thing that he notices about this, other than the calendar, is that leading up to the year 614 AD, there was a ton of stuff happening in Europe. Like there were all these significant events and wars. Yep. And in the year 911 and beyond, again, tons of stuff happening.
What happened?
But from 614 to 911 AD, it's almost dull. Like nothing goes on in the world.
That's suspicious.
It's like this really just dull, not much happens, just sort of lazy period of time, kind of.
That's so weird.
And so he and his team look into this more because what's with the 300-year gap?
Yeah. Who stopped writing? Well, everyone stopped writing stuff down.
Something had to have happened.
Or that I know it happened. The king of something big.
Something big.
Was Rome still around? Had they fallen yet?
Well, sorta.
Where was
There was like the Western and the Eastern Roman Empire. Yeah.
So one king was like, we don't talk about those years, and he outlawed it. And he had they had a big book burning. They outlawed everything. That's my theory.
That's your theory.
It was Julius.
Well, what happens, and this is the theory that they come up with. The Catholic Church was led by a Pope, Sylvester II.
It's always the Catholic Church.
And he gets together with the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III and the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VIII. And all three of these guys want to say that they were in charge of their own little thing, the church or the empires, in the year 1000 instead of the year 700.
So they just moved it all forward?
So the theory is that they saw the year 1000 as really significant religiously. Like you would be in God's good graces. And the year 1000 AD technically AD stands for Anno Domini, which is the year of the Lord.
Oh.
So these guys are like, we're living in the year 700-ish.
Uh-huh.
We want to be living in the year 1000, because wouldn't that be cool?
Did they try to con their way into the year of the Lord?
They basically just conned their way. They're like, you know what would be cooler than reigning in the year 700? Reigning in the year 1000.
That would be something we would do
It's
if we
like
were
this-
in charge.
It's like this super middle school, like, I want to reign in the year 1000. My year's lame.
This year's 2022. What if it was the year 3000? That way we could say we've been there.
Exactly. And so these guys get together, and what Hybert Illig comes up with is, if this phantom time hypothesis is true, they reigned in the years about 700, 702 to 706.
Yeah.
But their conspiracy involved fabricating stories and events all around them and in history so that they could live in the year 1000.
What?
Which means that everything in that year, that gap right there, is just totally made up.
Just false.
Just fake.
What?
Which is why there's not many events, not many people, not many stories. And that would mean that they made up
Holy cow.
one of the most famous stories of that time period, of the king and the Roman emperor Charlemagne.
Uh-huh.
He's just made up. He's fake. Like, they basically just made him like a King Arthur legend, where King Arthur's not a real character. It's just a legend of him.
Nuts.
And so these guys apparently were like, let's
Holy
reign in
cow.
1000. Let's just make up a ton of stuff. And since we're three of the most powerful people in the world, we can get away with it. No one will ever know.
Is the HMS Carmania even real?
Maybe it's just not as old as we thought.
Are we
or-
living in the 1700s?
That's the whole theory. What if we don't live in 2022? What if we live in 1725? Because the phantom time hypothesis says that we are 297 years behind, or ahead of where we should be.
So I would. Wow, this is a lot. This is a lot to take in. So I would have been technically born exactly on the year 1700.
Yep.
I'm not even a 1600 baby.
Nope.
1690s.
Yep. You know how we make fun of the 2000s kids because they're not real 90s kids?
I'm a 1700s
You
kid.
wouldn't be a 90s kid anymore.
No.
So there is
Wow.
evidence to support this. They came up with a lot of evidence to support their theory. The first one is obviously the Gregorian calendar, Julian calendar. That's their
Yeah.
big one.
Uh-huh.
Second is, when you look at archaeological evidence that's dated to the years 1614 to 911,
Yeah.
there's hardly anything. Like, there's nothing
I
really
hate
there.
that. Holy cow.
The third thing
Are
is
dinosaurs even extinct?
you don't even know. They could still be around.
Okay.
Have you seen Jurassic Park?
Yeah. Yeah,
They're living with
have.
us.
They're around.
The third piece of evidence is that Roman architecture was still found in Western Europe in the 10th century,
Uh-huh.
but the Roman Empire fell in 395.
So you actually had those exact numbers when I was asking earlier, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
just didn't say them.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you for that. Okay, so
So if the Roman Empire fell in basically 400, but there's still architecture around in 1,000, quote unquote,
yeah.
why is it around for 600 years? If 300 years is gone, it's only around for 300 years. That's a lot more plausible that it's still around. But 600
Yep.
years, would it still be standing?
No, I say no. This is very concerning.
It's so mind-blowing.
So like three guys just messed everything up
Yeah.
forever.
Basically because they were prideful and wanted to be cooler.
You know what group? This might be too far. Here we go. I'm saying it. You know what group we make fun of more in this podcast than any other group? Not currently, historically, the Catholic Church. Like in history, they just do a whole lot of stuff.
They just were in charge and they thought they called the shots. And this is what they would come up with. Let's move the calendar 300 years up.
Do you guys want to live in 1,000? We could live in 1,000. We're pretty powerful. If we just kind of tell everyone and make up some people,
Yeah. And no one will ever know.
that's crazy.
Yeah. And the last piece of evidence is all those forged and falsified documents. Like, they're fake. So, like, they had to be fake for a reason.
Yeah.
So how are they fake?
Wow. What? Yeah. What would be the purpose for them all being fake instead of a big cover up? Holy cow!
So that leaves us with this really big, like, existential question. Are we actually currently in the year 1725?
Should I be wearing a cummerbund?
Oh, you should.
Perhaps?
Well, you should, regardless of what year it truly is.
Or an accordion necklace? What are those called?
What?
Do you know what I'm talking about in the old pictures? They're like the big thing that wrap around your neck, and they look like if you squeezed them, they would go, ah!
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I have no idea what it's called.
I'm 1,000% sure it's called an accordion necklace.
I'm sticking with what you're saying, because that's fantastic.
Okay,
So,
that's nuts.
let's get to the evaluation of the phantom time
Yep,
hypothesis.
let's dive in. Let's do it.
So, probably not true at all.
I'm kind of sold, actually. I think I get convinced of things easily.
It's one of those things that would be really cool if it were true.
Uh-huh.
But it's really hard to say that it's true for a lot of reasons.
But it's not untrue
It's
yet.
It's not untrue. But first off, let's just look at the evidence, or the counter evidence.
Yep.
The calendar evidence that's really the core of their argument.
Uh-huh.
It's based off the Julian calendar, which was founded and started in 45 BC.
Correct.
But we don't really technically have records of the calendar until about 325 AD.
Okay.
So
it could have been weird.
it could have just been weird. It could have really been messed up, and we
Yeah.
don't really know how it worked.
But they looked at the stars a whole lot.
Oh, we'll get to stars.
Okay, sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
You're on fire, though.
I know.
You know what you're talking
I
about.
know stuff about stuff.
So second, even though there's like hardly any archaeological evidence from that 297-year gap,
Yep.
there's still evidence that's from that gap.
But just not a lot.
It's just not a lot.
Well, and the evidence. Nope, never mind. that was gonna be a goofball worthy statement. I was gonna say that would have been collected in the 1700s, but that is not a fact. You can collect. It doesn't move together parallel. We could collect archaeological finds from.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Remember when you said I was on fire?
You're on fire.
Let's go back to that.
Thirdly, the whole Roman architecture and the falsified documents, it's super interesting, but it's just entirely circumstantial. Like, that's not real evidence. It's just, it could be, but you can't prove something with that.
Yeah.
And the last thing is, if you look at the astronomical data, like you said, tracking especially solar eclipses, actually, this is the second to last point, they line up as in we're in the correct year. Because you can predict solar eclipses.
Right.
And the ones that they have from previous pre-gap 300 years, they line up with us being in the year 2022.
Okay, so some good soul out there was trying to stop these people.
Somebody knew it.
And they're like, these guys are going to try to bump us 300 years, but I'm tracking the solar stuff. I know the truth.
And I think my favorite part, because I really love this conspiracy theory. I'm not a conspiracy theory person per se, but this one is fascinating. But my favorite part is the last criticism. Like, they have all this really sciencey stuff.
Yep.
And then they just say, lastly, look at the rest of the world history. There's not a gap.
All the other calendars that everyone else used.
If you go to like Chinese history or if you go to Islamic history, there's no 300-year gap where they just sat on their hands and didn't do anything.
Nothing's happening here. Wonder what's going on over in Europe.
Like,
it's nothing.
Yeah, like the Chinese were still doing stuff. The Islamic forces were going through Africa.
Yeah.
But Europe was like, oh yeah, nothing happened in 300 years.
Yeah, the world, there was literally nothing going on.
So it was really like, you could use all the sciencey stuff, or you could just be like, there's clearly other things going on in the world. So why are we putting so much work into this?
If you lined up all the calendars, including the Belizean.
The Belizean's important.
Yeah. Maybe it was... Uh-oh. Now I'm second guessing. I think it was an Aztec calendar that he got me.
That's
when
cool.
he was down there.
Yeah.
So maybe they disappeared in that gap.
That's true. That's where they all went, was in the gap years.
Wait, no, the Aztecs did not disappear.
No, they
the
didn't.
Mayans, they didn't disappear either. Who did the Incas? They disappeared, right?
I think it was the Mayans.
Yeah. Oh no. I know this information because so there's two unaired episodes of Learn Me Something because we did a practice round and I talked about the Mayans.
Ah.
And Josiah and I are both really bad at it. We were just like basically reading from a script and we were super nervous. So it was like, and the Mayans, they have this pyramid that when the sun lines up just right, it has a snake. And they were good at math too.
It's a slithery little snake.
So we still have the episode, but it is not fun to listen to. We were also we were too nervous to start the episode because we didn't know what to say. So we like wrote down something and we would read it together and it'd be like, I'm Caleb and I'm Josiah and this is the Learn Me Something podcast where we blah 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 blah. All that to say, I know stuff about Mayans, and the popular belief is that they just kind of integrated with other cultures.
Yeah, that probably makes more sense.
But I'm still holding out for maybe they disappeared in a fun way.
It kind of goes with this theory of it's fun to have really crazy out there theories, but you got to have some pretty intense evidence to back it up.
Right. Yeah.
So is the phantom time hypothesis real?
Yes.
Yeah, probably not. But I think one of my favorite parts about it is even if we're not like 300 years ahead of where we should be, imagine if the calendars were off though.
Yeah.
Like what if they were off by even just 1 year and it was actually 2021 right now?
Oh, that would be awesome.
It would just be weird because like you're born in 97, but what if you were born in like 94?
We really don't know.
And you don't actually have any way of proving that you were born exactly in 1997.
Can we really prove that the people way back then were all that good at accurate calendar work?
Exactly.
That's what I want to know.
We have no way of actually proving what year it is.
That's crazy.
So, there's the phantom time hypothesis. That's my favorite conspiracy theory, and it's been fascinating to learn more about.
I'm putting 1700 on any birthday form for anything from now on.
He was born in the year 1700. Hey.
And if they try to arrest me for fraud, I will just, I guess, play this whole episode up until the evidence against.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll pause it and be like, there you have it.
just cite Hubert Illig of Munchen, Germany, and you'll have all the proof you need.
Oh, yeah. I tried to look it up, but I can't spell it well enough. And so I couldn't even get it to show up in the Google search. So we'll never know.
We'll never know. That's okay.
I'm kind of bummed that you did a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Josiah and I have realized in our time doing tap outs and guest hosts that it's pretty unfavorably biased towards the person who taps out.
Yeah.
It's really hard to beat a guest host when the voting happens. And you came with a fire topic too.
That's probably the best one I got.
Okay. Wait, where did you find that? Where did you hear about that? Josiah doesn't give me his sources for where he finds fun stuff.
Honestly, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was reading one of those like clickbait articles of 20 conspiracy theories you'll never believe. And all of them were like, the moon was faked and all that. And then it got to this one. I was like, this is so crazy, but seriously. I've never heard it. Like, you hear all the, Bigfoot's real, Loch Ness Monster's real, but this is one I'd never heard before.
You know why that is? Because it's the only one that's true.
Because it's true. Exactly. I'm just saying.
They're keeping it quiet.
Prove us wrong. Prove me wrong that I wasn't born in 96.
Think about the economic impact that could potentially happen if everyone found out that the year was wrong.
It would be amazing. It would be so cool.
Tax records alone. I mean, do you take it back? Do you go back and have like 1700.2 and have like a part 2?
Part 2?
That would be kind of fun, actually, because then you could be like, oh, this guy did this in 1805 this year. I bet I can do something better in 1805 than he did in the last 1805.
I mean, we're already pretty substantially farther ahead in technology compared to 1725, if that's the year.
We could take the fake 1705ists.
We got this easy. So, there you go. That is the phantom time hypothesis.
That's good. That was a good topic. Josiah's going to be proud of you.
I tried to do him proud, so.
And I'm starting You know, here's the thing. I am a pretty optimistic guy, but I'm starting to believe. I'm going to keep my hopes high, but I'm starting to believe I might not win this episode. So here we go. I am going to just talk about a race.
I love a good race.
Yeah, it's a good story. So I don't know if you listened to this episode, the 1904 marathon. Talked about it a while ago. Basically, it was chaos. If you didn't listen,
I don't know if I heard that one. Let's give us a reminder here.
basically, no one in the early 1900s just had any clue how to do stuff. So they had this marathon in the Olympics, and it went horribly awry. One guy just got in a taxi and drove to the finish line.
Oh, yes.
One guy had to be evacuated to the hospital because he was breathing in too much dust because they did it on a dirt path.
Oh, okay.
One guy had trainers who fed him brandy and egg whites to help him run better.
Yeah, of course. That's my pre-run workout.
I think only like 5. Oh, yeah, one guy spent all his money. Or no, he saved up. He had a fundraiser in his community. He was from an island. I can't remember which island. They paid for him to come out. He spent all of the money that they had saved up for him to go do this, gambling. Lost it all. So he just went and did this race. He didn't have any shoes on, and he didn't have enough money to buy shoes or like shorts. So he was dressed like business casual.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, anyway, that was the 1904 marathon.
That's fantastic.
What do you say we fast forward 4 years to another really well thought out race?
1908.
This
Great year.
Yep. Some people might know the story, car lovers specifically. This is the great 1908 auto race across the world.
Across the world.
Have you heard of this?
I've never heard of this. I'm intrigued.
It's the across the world business that makes this story pretty interesting. Well, there's lots of interesting twists in here. So this is back when the horse was considered more reliable than a car still.
That's a rough time, man.
Yep. And so couple magazines or news sources, New York Times and France's Le Matin. I don't know how to say it. I don't try anymore pronouncing stuff on here.
You just give it your best shot.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask.
I throw it out. Well, because if I make a big deal out of it, Josiah makes me do the goofball. So these two big news sources, they're like, let's get together, let's sell some more news, and let's sell some cars. And they're like, we're going to have an epic worldwide car race. And this is, to this day, still the longest motorsport event ever.
Really?
Time. Yep.
Wow.
So here's the plan. Things get ridiculous pretty quick. We're going to have cars race. We're going to have multiple countries get involved. So each countries will have their representative cars. Everyone's going to start in New York City. They're going to drive from New York City to California, San Francisco specifically. They're going to drive from San Francisco up to Alaska.
Of course.
They're going to drive from Alaska to Siberia. Then they're going to drive through Russia, and they're going to end in Paris.
Okay, I mean, other than the obvious here, I'm sure you'll get to it, so I'm not going to ask the question that's on my mind. But
well, let me ask the question for you from one of the history guys. So they're having this meeting, and this guy that I'm making up, I'm assuming someone had this same question. They said,
I'm hoping they did.
Hey, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there is actually an ocean in between part of this race.
Yeah. Yep.
And so they said, that's a good point. Let's do it in winter.
I love it.
Here's their theory.
I love it, man.
And keep in mind, this is like 100 years. This is not super long ago.
No, it's not. Well, it could have been in the 1600s.
It could have been way back in the 1600s. We don't know. But they said, we're going to do it in winter because the Bering Strait's going to be frozen.
Sure.
So it freezes every winter. We know this for a fact. We're not going to check our sources. We're not going to ask anyone who knows about this. Let's just assume for the time being that this freeze is over.
Do you know this piece of information? How wide is the Bering Strait?
I do not. But I do know that it has not frozen over in the winter for many thousands of years.
I'm just like, it's not like, oh, look, it's a half a mile across from Siberia to Alaska.
It's a significant trip.
That's a long ways for an entire ocean to be frozen.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
So, you and I are on the same page here. I just want to make that clear. But these guys, they didn't have an issue with it. They brought up the point. Someone said, "We'll do it in the dead of winter, and things should be fine as long as we get it done before spring. Then they can just drive straight to Siberia." Everyone knows this information. I've got this map from my great-grandfather's great-great-great-grandfather, and there's actually a dragon next to it that they have to drive.
Of course, yeah. I want to go on record by saying I know how I want this story to end. It's probably not how it's going to, but I have a picture in my mind of how this ends, and it makes me happy, even though it's really kind of dark and depressing. It makes me happy.
Are you picturing the scene in The Office where they just like drive into the lake?
I just picture like 400 cars, but they're in 1900 cars, so they're old and rickety, just like, and then it just goes straight into the ocean, like not even trying to stop.
Here we go. It's winter.
And it's frozen.
This
Let's
bad
go.
boy's frozen.
And they all just go, and then everyone's standing there. It's like, huh?
Hold on.
I'm gonna head home.
It's not that exciting.
That's okay.
But it's still good. Believe it or not, there are more twists in this story than just their one significant overlook in mappage.
I love
geographical consideration. So,
oh man,
they say, yeah, no issues. Let's do it. So they're like, we need to make sure we do this in winter. So they start February 12th, 1908. It's very cold. There's 250,000 people lining the streets of New York City. So well publicized. They're all standing, waiting to witness the start of the biggest race ever accomplished.
Hold on, they started in February?
Yeah, don't ask questions.
I never mind.
It has to be in winter.
I'm not a genius, okay? I don't claim to be like some sort of child prodigy, just like super intelligent. But already, like, red flags, man.
Chazz, they have to do it in winter so they can drive across the Pacific Ocean.
They want to get to San Francisco.
So they start in mid-February. What do you not understand?
Do they know when the months of December or winter are?
Chazz, you're clearly not as smart as these people. So,
oh my gosh.
17 men in 6 cars. Don't ask questions.
Nope.
Actually, that's not that ridiculous. It's just a couple guys a car. Every car had drivers, mechanics, and journalists. So all these cars are parked in Times Square.
Except one car.
One car.
One car's like, we don't need a mechanic.
One car is missing something. Well, here's the thing. There's 3 cars from France, so they probably shared some resources there.
That's fair.
Yeah. So they're all parked in the Times Square. There's actually a ton of pictures of this, which is kind of fun. You can see the cars and the drivers and the crowds of people. I would have loved to have lived or time traveled to early 1900s.
Oh, man.
Just for a minute, just to see.
That's so fascinating. Oof.
So 3 cars from France, 1 from Germany, 1 from Italy, and the last is from the U.S. So they really got all of the groups involved.
Oh, yeah.
All 4.
France had 3. They really were the tryhards of the group.
They decided they wanted to win. The U.S. car was called the Thomas Flyer. 60 horsepower. That baby had 3 extra gas tanks with 125-gallon capacity. It also was one of the first convertibles. Had a makeshift convertible top that they could throw down because it was the dead of winter.
Bougie.
Yeah. U.S. team they were living the good life.
They picked a convertible car.
So,
drive across the Bering Strait in winter.
Yeah, they're going to drive. Chazz, I don't know what you're not getting. They're going to drive to San Francisco. They're going to drive to Alaska. They're going to drive to Siberia in their convertible, and they're going to win the race.
Oh, good.
They're starting
Lord.
in February.
Yep.
The race is scheduled to start at 11. They've got Mayor George B. McClellan Jr. He's going to fire the starting pistol. He doesn't show up. So, 20 minutes later, a bystander, just a random guy on the street, sees the starting pistol and just runs up to it. Apparently, they just let it lay around. He just picks it up and shoots it.
I thought you were going to say he pulled it out of his pocket. He's like, I got one, and just fired a gun in the air.
Yeah. No, he like found the starting pistol.
That is
just sitting on a
awesome.
table. And he fires it, and the race is on. So great start to what's supposed to be the biggest race ever. So things get bad pretty quick. One French car makes it less than 100 miles down the road. Then it breaks down. And then they realize why races aren't typically held in the winter. So you've got to keep in mind a lot of the terrain they're covering doesn't have roads.
Not
at all.
interstates.
Yeah. Even like the best they can do in some spots is trails.
Yep.
So they pretty quickly run into deep like feet of snow. So now they're walking their cars. So one person
Walking it?
Yeah. So one guy, the hero kind of the story, well, one of a couple heroes on the American team. These 6 cars have to drive. Well, 5 cars. They lost a French car. Have to drive in a single file line. Just makes sense. The American took the lead, of course.
Of course.
With the Thomas Flyer convertible. So one guy just kind of gets out, and he's got a stick, so he kind of checks how deep the snow is, and then
stick?
yeah, he throws some planks down for traction.
Right.
None of these cars had heat or windshields. Don't ask questions.
Nope.
I don't know. I don't know how they made the convertible work.
Nope. That's not a convertible. That's just...
I'm thinking they put like a roof on it, and the front was still just open.
It's like a canoe on wheels. Doesn't have a windshield.
So eventually they all get stuck, and they hire out a guide who comes with horses, more reliable.
Of course.
They come pull them out. They finally get through. And after all this, Thomas Flyer takes the lead. Go USA.
Oh, yeah.
By the time Thomas Flyer gets to Wyoming, they're ahead by 2 states.
Oh, my goodness.
So the Americans just took off.
They're flying. It's the Thomas Flyer for a reason.
Yeah, agreed. And there were a lot of issues on the way. While they were still together, they had some alliances. They had some truces with the other vehicles, just, survival stuff.
Some truth.
Yeah, but then people started getting suspicious, superstitious. They were like, they're going to ditch us. So then one guy, I think from the German car, starts commanding stuff like, you will tell me before you do anything. So that's when Americans said, okay, well,
bye.
This is going to feel like a race from now on. And they take off. So they're 2 states ahead. They would drive from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. For a while, the teams agreed to alternate leadership every 5 hours, but that broke when the superstition started.
Yep.
They would stop at hardware stores to refill on gasoline, a single bucket at a time. So
my gosh.
that took a while. The U.S. team, they were accused of some stuff. The other teams thought that they got on a trolley on the railroad tracks and just kind of rode for a while.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. One of the French cars in the drive, they got stuck in snow, and there was one guy who was supposed to be an expert at winter conditions. He couldn't get him out of the snow. And so the driver's like, that's it, we're dueling. Yeah, dueling's still around.
That's still a thing. Okay. I'm all about it.
So they're getting ready to duel, and then another guy in the car is like, what if we just fire the guy? So they fired him, and
So
he
he's
hitchhiked
fired.
to the next town. Other things that went wrong, locals would come and help the U.S. car, and then they would charge the foreign cars for any sort of assistance.
Nice. The American way.
Exactly. Yeah, just try to make it as unfair as possible. At one point, the foreign team sent an official plea to the president of the Chicago Automobile Club. They had something printed under the Tribune with the headline, "Foreigners' Pathetic Appeal. The peasants demand $3 per mile for helping us. They charged $5 each to permit us to sleep on the ground. Peasants along the way have filled..." Apparently they call people peasants still.
Peasants is still a thing, too.
"Peasants along the way have filled up the road dug by the leading cars." So the leading cars dug these big holes, apparently, and they just, filled them back up so that they couldn't use the tracks, in the snow.
Of course.
So as to help... Oh, yeah, all to help the Thomas car. Would it be possible to influence public opinion to aid us? I don't think anything happened there with that.
I don't really see much happening.
Yeah, nothing.
No.
Not a lot going on. This story's ridiculous. And it just goes on and on. But people were super into it. Like every town they went into, everyone grouped up, gathered around, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. Let's see what else happens.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, they had to walk oftentimes like 10 miles in the middle of the night to find gasoline.
Of course.
So that was a fun thing they got to deal with.
Gosh.
And finally, the race administration said it would take about 2 weeks to get to San Francisco. That's what they estimated. 41 days and 8 hours later, the American team made it to San Francisco. And keep in mind, they're like 2 or 3 states ahead by this point.
Right.
Only 4 cars end up making it to San Francisco. Oh, no, that's not true. 5 cars make it, but 1 car does take a train. And so the Germans, they decide, they have some car issues.
Yeah.
So they decide, I've got a plan. We're going to take our car apart, and we're going to ship it to San Francisco.
Germans.
Yeah.
You love them.
And so they're like in the middle of doing that, and they get caught by a photographer. The photographer's like, "Yep, this is not going to fly." So apparently the race officials let them off due to confusion. So these race officials are just the worst.
What? Okay.
So they give them a 15-day penalty, basically. So 5 cars make it to San Francisco.
That's all the way to San Francisco penalty.
Yeah. Yep. By the time they hit San Francisco, the Americans were 900 miles ahead.
Holy
So they're
smokes.
doing great work. They hit San Francisco in the 3rd week of March. So they're still perfectly on track to hit the straight by wintertime.
Perfectly.
Yeah, they're doing great. So, next step for them is the trip to Alaska.
Yep.
So they make it to San Fran, 40 days, headed up to Alaska.
Cruising.
They're about to get started, and then they're told by some locals, you guys know it's physically impossible to drive to Alaska, right? And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, our cars are early 1900s cars, and you want to drive through Alaska and Canada. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, what's the problem?
Yeah, so anyway. Actually, let's take a quick intermission. Do you want to call Josiah real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I am like halfway through this story, but just thought it would be fun to say, hey, we'll see if he answers. Come on, Josiah.
Let's go.
Josiah.
He must just be having too much fun.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, too much fun.
Guys, now you all know which host has more dedication. Has more dedication to this podcast. Okay, that was a fun intermission.
Great intermission.
So they're told that you actually cannot drive to Alaska in these cars. So they're like, yeah, that's fine. The race committee decides you can ship your cars to Alaska and then drive to.
Yes.
And
Problem solved.
the driving to this. What makes me laugh about this part is that the race committee was still like, oh. Yeah, we didn't really think about that. You can ship your car to Alaska and then just still drive to Siberia. As if somehow that part of the plan still made any sense.
Exactly. Oh my.
Yep, it's great. So the Americans, they hit Alaska, hit touchdown on April 8th, ready to drive to Siberia. They're welcomed by the entire population of Valdez. I don't know how many people that is, but apparently very few of them had ever seen a car, so that was probably pretty fun for them.
Valdez, Alaska, shout out.
So they shipped their car all the way to Alaska.
Cool.
Takes like a month.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, all right, let's get kicking. Let's drive to Siberia. They quickly realize in a matter of minutes, I think,
I would assume so.
that it is unrealistic to actually drive from Alaska to Siberia, and that nobody had bothered to check this, and that the Bering Strait had not frozen over in quite some time, think thousands of years. So they scrapped this plan. They
Yeah.
send a letter over to the committee, and the committee's like, shoot. All right, we'll forget that. So basically, the only reason that they had this in the middle of winter
Right.
was for this one reason, that they just did not research at all. So now, months, well, 1.5 full months of work
Yep.
was kind of just for nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Just garbage.
Yep. Also, this race was the first continental travel in the winter from a car.
Wow.
Yeah,
Hey,
fun fact. So,
there's one good point.
yeah, exactly. Something good came out of it. So they shipped their car back to Seattle.
Hey, get it back in the box.
And then they, toss it back in there. Let's get to Seattle. They get to Seattle. They're like, all right, throw that on a ship. We're headed to Siberia.
Are you kidding me, man?
So they're headed to Siberia.
They
This
couldn't
race,
get on a ship from Alaska. They had to ship the car back to Seattle to get on the ship to go to
exactly.
Russia.
Well, they were worried that it was still frozen over, so the shipment wouldn't work. So they had to do it from Seattle. Also, by the way,
man.
by the time the Americans make it back to Seattle, the other cars are now weeks ahead of them.
Oh, of course.
So the race organizers gave the Americans a 15-day allowance. That'll come in handy later. So, all right, let's fast forward a little bit. All cars have been shipped to Siberia.
Long shipment days.
Everyone waits for the Americans, for the Thomas Flyer, and they agree to start even from Siberia, which means that the entire race up to this point,
Pointless.
completely pointless. Didn't matter even a little bit.
Now it's not even around the world.
It's just a race from Siberia to Paris.
Yep.
Yep. So, they all agree. They're like, yeah, let's just start even. So they're like, all right, well, let's gas up and then we'll head out. They look just about everywhere. Can't find any gas anywhere. So they're sitting around the circle, all the racers, and they're like, guys, what are we going to do? We can't find any gas. And one Frenchman kind of just like perks up and he's like, yeah, I know. That's because I snuck out last night and bought all of the gas in the entire area. And they were like, oh, sweet, problem solved then. And he's like, no. I will give any car this gas that helps the French win. So basically the bribe is that he'll give the gas to any car that will let him join, basically, because the French are pretty bad at this race.
Apparently, all three of their cars are just crap.
And one of them just died immediately. So the Americans said no, of course.
Yeah.
They even said something. I didn't write down the actual quote, but they said something like, I would rather live in Siberia for the rest of my life than accept a bribe like this. It was all very American. The Italians, though, they accepted it. They thought, yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's go for it.
And so then they were like, hop on, Frenchman. And then the sponsor of the French team, they find out. And they're like, no, that's not happening. You got to get out of here. So Italians got all the gas. And the Frenchman doesn't even get the perks. So they're headed out. And so now we have the final push.
The final shove.
Crossing Siberia, Manchuria, and Russia. Germans take the lead. Americans are just behind them. The Italians, with all their gas, are thousands of miles behind. It was a bad bribe, I guess. Did not work out.
That's so funny.
The actual quote, they were told this. They were told by Russian officials, you can't do this. You will not be able to get across. And to which the teams responded, we shall be met on the road by Chinese brigands, whatever that is, Manchurian tigers, fever, plague, pestilence, famine, to say nothing of the mud after 3 months of rain, mosquitoes as big as locusts, and other similar delights. And then they just kind of do it, so it works out. Yeah, it was weirdly dramatic.
Yeah, okay.
So they fight their way through this. They fight. Started in April. On July 26th, 5.5 months after the start of this race, 22,000 miles later, the German car rolls into Paris. And French don't really like Germany, so it's kind of a cold greeting.
Oh, yeah. That was probably hindsight.
Yeah. And so everyone's like, Germany won, I guess. But Germany did not win.
Oh,
Because wait for it, the U.S. had a 15-day allowance. They were still in it. So as long as the U.S. could get there within 15 days, they would take the cup or, whatever
Their
was,
reward
for
was.
prize. Yeah. So 4 days later, Thomas Flyer comes rolling into Paris. And the crowd goes wild. They're slowly driving towards the finish line. Everyone's cheering. They're about to pass the finish line, and a French police officer steps in front of them. And they kind of stop. They're like, "What's going on?" And he says, "You're under arrest." And they say, "Wait, what? What's the deal? What did we do?" And he said, "By French law, you have to have a headlight on your car to drive in Paris at night. That's the law." And whole crowds of people are rushing towards the police officer trying to explain, "This is what's going on. They actually just drove from Alaska to Siberia and are now here." And he was like, "I don't know what to tell you. The law's the law." And here comes the hero of the whole story.
Oh, the hero.
There's a friendly Frenchman. He had just finished his baguette.
Oh, yes, his baguette.
He was bicycling back home, and he comes across this scene. The officer is opening the door, trying to escort the American driver out, and he sees what's going on, and he sees why. He jumps off his bicycle, throws his bicycle into the passenger seat of the car, turns on the headlamp on his bicycle, and says, "These men are free to go."
Wow.
And the officer steps aside and was like, "The law's the law. You got a headlamp."
What is this guy, man?
I don't know. And the Americans drove to victory. Isn't that the dumbest little side plot of this movie?
It's so dumb. They're free to go.
Allow them to pass.
And the officer's like, "Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a headlight.
It's
for
a
sure.
bicycle in your car, but that works for me."
There's a light that's shining forward.
For someone who's like just insanely strict about a stupid rule, he's like, "Nah, that's fine. I'm cool."
Yep, that checks out. That works perfectly. And
Oh, man.
so they win. The Americans roll in. The crowd goes crazy. It's a beautiful moment. Their reward is a 1,400-pound trophy for some reason.
1,400 pounds?
Yeah, they weren't given any money. They were given fame and honor and a 1,400-pound trophy
Wow.
that I'm assuming they took apart to ship back to
Yeah.
Seattle. The lead driver on the American team, Schuster, he was the guy he was walking around with the stick, laying down the plywood.
The stick guy.
He was walking miles to get the gas. Just a true American man.
Yes.
He was promised, the biggest reward he got was he was promised employment at the company that made the Thomas Flyer. It was the Thomas Company. He said, "As long as our company is in business, you've got a job here." He's like, "My whole life just changed, I think." Till 5 years later when that company went bankrupt.
I was going to say.
They sold everything, auctioned off the Thomas Flyer, and thus ends the great race of 1908.
Oh, wow. What a story.
Doesn't have any importance at all.
There's so many things about it that just.
I was digging for a topic earlier, and I was like, "There's got to be just some fun story that I've never heard of." And I was looking on Reddit, and it was some random post that was like, "Redditors, share your favorite historical weird thing that happened."
Yeah.
So I was scrolling through that, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, this is all fun." And it was like 1908 auto race. I was like, "Well, if I know anything about early 1900s races, this probably has some potential."
Oh, absolutely.
And then the very first sentence was, "From New York City to Paris, driving the whole way." I was like, "All right, this is it. This is for me."
That's so funny. It blows my mind how little they can consider things.
They didn't ask any questions, didn't even try to research or they didn't send a letter. "Hey, Alaskans, how often would you say the Bering Strait freezes over in the winter? What's our probability of success here?" They were just like, "I've never been more confident that it freezes all the way over. Trust me, I just know this kind of stuff."
Like, they didn't consider that. They didn't consider driving across winter wastelands of Siberia, Alaska, Canada.
Yep.
They didn't consider there's no interstates or highways. It's just like driving on gravel roads and stuff. There's
Yep.
no gas stations along the way.
Yep.
You can't drive at night because apparently you don't have a headlight on your
No
car.
one has headlights,
Like-
apparently. Yeah, and they in long sections where there weren't even roads, they would just like drive on the railroad tracks. They would like try to outfit their wheels to like fit right.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh. And they didn't have heat in their car and they're driving in February. They didn't start in like October, November.
the fact
You
that they didn't
know-
even, the fact that they were like, all right, if we start this in February, it'll take them 2 weeks to drive from New York to San Francisco. So it'll still be winter. It'll
Yeah.
still be frozen over for sure.
I just think it's funny that they were clearly ahead of the Americans, and yet they said, "Oh, you have a 15-day allowance. That's okay. You can keep that, and we'll wait for you to get here."
Yeah.
It's like, how foolish is that?
Well, and Germany had a 15-day penalty.
Yeah.
So total, it was like 30 days.
They were way behind.
Yeah. Ooh, Josiah's calling back.
All right, just in time.
This will be good. We can update him on how we're doing, and tell him that we're doing a good job. Josiah, hi.
Sorry, I was just vibing.
Just vibing. That's what I said he was doing.
Yeah, you know me.
We just finished our topics. You're missing out.
Oh, I am excited to hear about it.
Yeah, you best be. It's gonna be pretty fun.
They're both pretty epic.
Chazz, are you gonna win?
Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah, he brought the heat, and I brought like I don't know, half an hour of just kind of entertainment.
Jibber jabber.
Yeah,
That's good too.
you know, nothing important. No takeaways in this episode.
We did a lot of history things, Josiah. Lots of
good.
history.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Oh yeah, many we covered thousands of years.
We really
of
did.
history.
Sounds good. We're sitting outside. I'm just in a short sleeve. We're hammocking.
Oh,
It's
Ah.
so good. It's so nice.
that sounds delightful. If you guys don't know, and as I'm saying that, I realize that probably very few of our podcast listeners know. Josiah's in Phoenix right now,
The big AZ.
living the.
Are you recording right now?
Yeah, we're on. You're live.
Ah!
That would have been a good thing to say to you, huh?
Probably could have told you
I
that.
don't know. It's okay. Well, I'm glad people are still listening and go vote for Chazz.
Yeah, woo!
That seems biased.
No, he's my guy.
He's my guy. He's
my
my
guy.
guy. I told him I'd let
my
him
guy.
decide if he wants to do the punishment or if he wants to have you do it. Since you're not technically here.
Okay. Well, since he's my tap out guy, I am happy to do it. So no pressure, Chazz.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna win anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. I'm not cocky. I'm just confident.
I actually agree with you two as well.
That's a good balance. That's a good balance. Cocky. No wait. Confident. What are you? You are cocky or you're confident?
No, cocky's bad. I'm confident. Confident's good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sure,
for
sure,
sure.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling. I'm gonna get back to vibing.
Okay.
You go vibe, buddy.
Enjoy the vibe. We'll miss
See
you.
you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
That guy.
What a guy. He's
What a
just
guy.
vibing in a hammock in Arizona.
Okay, Chaz. Let's wrap this bad boy up.
We should wrap it up, put a little bow on it.
Yep, let's give it you said a good saying and I did not. Why don't you tell him what the punishment is?
So we don't really have the specifics of the punishment, but the general punishment is that the loser of today's episode, Caleb, or I guess technically Josiah, because he's
Yeah.
going to take it for me. If
Or
we
you,
lose.
should you decide.
I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. But
Okay.
the punishment is, as you guys probably know, this is filmed in Montana.
Cold.
It's cold.
It's frozen over all the way to Siberia up here.
It's frozen. You can't drive a car on it.
Nope.
But what you can do is you can jump in the freezing cold water of a nearby
Yeah,
lake.
That's a fact.
And that is quite a fun punishment.
The polar plunge.
It's a classic polar plunge situation.
Yep, that's the big punishment. Which I'm kind of surprised we have not done that yet this winter. We just haven't thought of it.
It's a
don't-
good one.
It'll be really sad for Josiah to do. He'll be really cold. I feel bad for him. Okay, 30 seconds. Why should people vote for you and Josiah?
Because I just blew your minds with the phantom time hypothesis. It could be the year 1725. We could be living in the 1700s. And it's all because 3 guys were powerful and popular enough to just say, I want to live 300 years in the future, and you can't do anything about it. So you don't actually know the year you were born, and that should blow your mind and make you really think about things.
Yeah, that's pretty. I don't have anything to beat even that 30-second summary. I proved again and again and again in this podcast that the people of the early 1900s just do things different sometimes. Whether it's dance marathons or running marathons or car marathons across the world. Well, okay, really any sort of endurance thing.
There's
is
a theme here.
Yeah. I should start branching out. I should diversify my topics some more. So vote for me. Wow, I insulted my own topic in the reason they should vote for me. Vote for me because that story was entertaining and I learned you something rich.
Not gonna lie, I actually thoroughly enjoyed yours. It was really funny.
Yes.
It was very rich.
It was rich. Lots of twists in there. I love a story with good twists.
I'm a sucker for a story with twists and laughs,
Yep.
and that one gave me twists and laughs.
Packed a punch.
So,
That's true. Maybe it'll
beginning
be
to
more
end.
even voting than I imagine.
I don't know.
How
Whoever
would-
wins, I think it was a fair fight.
How would you feel being the first tap-out host to lose an episode?
You know, I brought my A game, but I feel like your story is pretty good. So I would be humbled if I won or if I lost.
You're willing to accept defeat?
I would.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's all I got. You got anything else you want to say?
Thanks for having me. I'm
Thanks.
glad to be the honorary second-time host.
Thanks for coming and sitting in this tiny 10 by 10 square foot room.
It's been really nice listening to the ballet music below us in the dance studio.
Yeah, you know, it creates an atmosphere, I find.
It's a great ambiance. It really is.
My wife and I live above a dance studio, a ballet studio to be specific. And they're working on their spring performance stuff right now. Lots of good stuff.
It's chill, man.
Yeah, they're doing some Adele. All classical piano, though. They did Aladdin recently. It was
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
fun.
Vibing just like Josiah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's always a vibe when you come into this place. All right, that'll do it. Would you like to do the honors?
All right. Larry, play us out.